This is like the third time that I'm taking this. This is terrible. Anyways, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be specifically dedicated to more of the faith aspect of my channel. And so I have two devotions that are really close to my heart that really spoke to me this past week when I was going through my devotion time with God. And I wanted to be able to share them and hope that, you guys would be able to take something away from them as well. And so if hearing a devotion is something that you need for this week, and if you haven't gone through your own devotion and you wanted to listen to the rest of this video, please stay tuned. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. I love to hear your guys' feedback and making sure that, what I'm presenting on this channel is something that you really enjoy and that's really uplifting for you, because this channel is just as much for you as it is for me. So if you've checked off yes on all those things, then please stay tuned for the rest of the video. Okay guys, so this week I'm sharing two devotions that I actually went through last week, and they kind of went hand in hand, and that's not often I feel like that happens in my devotion book, but I found that the two concepts were very clearly linked. The first one being the fact that, sometimes we find ourselves in a position where we're not willing to listen intently to what God has to say, where we would rather just, push his instructions off to the side and take our own path and not really heed to some of the warnings that he's presenting to us. And in those moments, sometimes he kind of has to hit us over the head with a 2x4. And that's exactly what this devotion is entitled. It's called Tap or 2x4. And so it deals with this idea that, sometimes God does allow for Satan to, and only by way of his permission, to nudge us and even hit us over the head with something dramatic or traumatic happening in our lives, just so that he can shake us and wake us up and get our attention, and so that we can look to him to help us out of those situations. And the subsequent day, the next devotion that I went through was entitled Testing, and I found that sometimes I'm in the midst of something that I can't quite figure out why it's happening. And again, God has allowed for certain things to happen in our lives, not so that we can be thrown into just confusion and upset and sadness, but so that we can really lean on him for guidance and for support and for love, and that we might have and grow deeper connection of faith and love for him. And so I thought that those two concepts really went hand in hand, and so I wanted to read a little bit of both devotions to you today, and hope that something in it will speak to you, and that you can take it through the rest of your week, especially if you haven't done a devotion on your own yet this week. So the first devotion, like I had mentioned, was called Tap or 2x4, and the main crux of this devotion, I think, was at the end paragraph where it says, "Remember, discipline should result in mercy, not misery. Some saints are awakened by a tap on the shoulder, while others need a 2x4 to the head. And whenever God needs a 2x4, Satan gets the call." And that's not to say, I think, we shouldn't get caught up in that last sentence, that God is like literally calling on Satan to, deliver misery to our lives. But sometimes when we're not willing to heed his instructions, when we're not willing to go the way in which he's showing us, when we're not willing to literally take the easy way out because it contradicts everything that we see for ourselves and everything that we think is right and good, God has to say, no, I'm trying to tell you that this path that you're going on is a path that's only going to lead to destruction, and that's not what I want for you. And if you're not going to listen to me, then I'm just unfortunately going to have to let bad things happen to you. And until you wake up and you see that, I am the person that you need to look to for peace and for guidance, and not yourself. And I thought that that was really poignant, especially in a conversation that I had earlier this week with a friend. And we both found ourselves at various points in life where, we're more willing to kind of say, okay, God, I got this, or okay, God, I know that you're telling me to do this, but let me just finish out everything else that I have to do before I listen to you, just because, I'm not really sure that you know everything that's going on, behind closed doors. So let me just, take charge of this on my own for a little bit, and then, you know, whatever's left over, I'll give to you. And God is saying, no, absolutely not. I want everything, your whole heart, right from the beginning. I want all your decision making, all of your choices, everything that you hold dear and you hold to be true, and all the ideologies you have about yourself and the way that your life is going to go. I want you to hand those over to me so that I can direct your path, so that I can order your steps. And I think that is really reflected in this devotion. So the main verse that this devotion is based out of is Hebrews 25, verse 5 to 6. And it says, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son." And so I think that a lot of times when we look at our situation and we're thinking, dang, like, if God loved me, why is he allowing all this stuff to happen? Well, have you ever stopped to think that maybe you're not doing what God is asking you to do, and he loves you enough, he loves you so much, in fact, that he feels like the only way to get your attention is to allow some of the bad stuff to happen so that you can come right back to where he's calling you. And God has such an amazing way of reaching out and bringing you right back towards himself. And I found myself in that position many times in life. And so I'm so grateful for the discipline that he's allowed to happen to me. And even in the midst of those times, I'm still working on, being and staying faithful and grateful, because I feel like if he didn't love me, that would be even worse, because all this bad stuff would be happening to me and I wouldn't have anyone to turn to. And so I'm grateful for that discipline, because it's a reflection of how much I know that he cares and how much he wants me to live out my life in the way that he knows is best. So again, that kind of ties into the other devotion that I read the next day. And it comes from Job, chapter 23, verse 10. And it says, "When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold." And I just thought that that was such a beautiful way to word, "When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold." And I thought, man, with everything that I'm going through, all the stuff that I can't quite seem to get past, God is still working on my side, and God is still creating my story and molding me into the person that he wants me to be. And I'm so grateful for not only the time when I can look back and say all of these trials and tribulations and all the testing that I went through was for my good, and so that I can share it as my own testimony and my own story of how God has been so good, but also that I can celebrate in the midst of it. And there's a couple of songs that really escape me right now. Hopefully I can remember them when I'm editing this video and like put the titles of them in here. But the song that I'm thinking of right now, just, it really gives praise to God even in the midst of the chaos that's going around you. And I think that it's so important, and sometimes we forget that, to really look to God and be grateful for everything that he's doing and that he's done in the midst of just not being able to figure things out and not being able to figure life out on your own. And God does allow for testing to happen. He does allow for our faith to be tested, because he wants to know that we're growing and we're being a reflection of who he is in our lives every day, and that we're not just saying that we're a Christian in word and not in action, and not in the way that we're living our lives. And so I'm just going to read a little bit of this devotion, because I think it's really important that I do. And it says, "Satan likes to test the saints. Listen to the warning Jesus gives to Peter. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to test all of you as farmers shifts his wheat. I have prayed that you will not lose your faith. Help your brothers be stronger when you come back to me. Satan may like to test his saints, but notice who is in control. Even though Satan had a plan, he had to get permission. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me," Jesus explained. And that's from Matthew 28, verse 18. "And this is proof. The wolf cannot get to the sheep without the permission of the shepherd, and the shepherd will only permit the attack if in the long term the pain is worth the gain. Jesus was allowing Peter to experience a trial so he could encourage his brothers. Perhaps God is doing the same with you. Your difficulty, your disease, your conflict are preparing you to be a voice of encouragement to your brothers. All you need to remember is this: no test or temptation that has come your way is beyond the course of what others have had to face. All you need to remember is that God will never let you down. He'll never let you be pushed past your limit. He'll always be there to help you come through. And the verse that they reference there is one of my favorites. It's 1 Corinthians 10:13, and a friend of mine actually shared with that verse with me a very long time ago when I was struggling with something and I didn't really know how to go to God without feeling shame, and shortcomings and failures and sin. These are all parts of life. And we need to start looking at them as ways to grow closer to God rather than ways to pull ourselves away. And if you think about it, that's exactly what Satan wants. In the midst of things going awry, he wants you to not feel like you have someone to reach out to. He wants you to feel like you can't call on God. He wants you to feel isolated and alone. And in the midst of those things, God is saying, no, I'm providing these tests so that you might draw nearer to me, so that you might hear my voice, that you might know that I'm your shepherd and that I'm not letting anything, I am not allowing anything to happen to you that I know that you cannot overcome, because I've given you all the power and everything that you will need to overcome the situation if you would just put your trust and faith in me. And so I thought that those two messages really went hand in hand. I hope that have a moment with God this week. Get into your Bible, get into your devotion. If you need some suggestions or some links, please feel free to comment and I can forward those things to you, because there's some really great resources out there and available for you to use so that you don't feel like, oh, God is just something that I say for Sunday. God wants to be with you every single day, because tests come every single day. Life happens every single day. And if we just, compartmentalize God off to one day out of the whole week, how do we get through our weeks? How do we get through the tests if we don't feel like we have a connection with him, that we can call on him in the midst of those trials and tribulations? So again, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it was spirit-filled for you and that you'll take something from it for your week. I hope to see you guys in the next video, and I love you and thank you so much for supporting and watching me. Thanks guys. Bye.